So a big problem I'm having with this show at this point is a similar problem that I had with the book, is I just don't like anyone. I'm legitimately confused who the creators of this show are wanting me to like, because Mia is being controlling and kind of a jerk, and obviously you're not supposed to root for Elena because she's just diabolical. So not sure what they're going for at this point. They've changed Mia a lot from the book. Like, they have scenes here where she does literally the opposite thing of what her book counterpart does. And it was bizarre to me, and I'm not entirely sure what the reasoning for these changes was, because it makes her a lot less likable, and it also just makes the story a lot different. And I'm not sure what the thinking behind these decisions was. But maybe you'll let me know when I get to that. But before I go on, why don't you go ahead and give me a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one. So getting into the episode review for Duo, which is the name of the episode, and I'm not sure which duo it's referring to. It could be referring to young Elena / old Elena and her former lover Jamie. And in this episode, it's kind of funny because they have young Elena played by Anna Sophia Robb, who some of you might recognize from because of Winn-Dixie and Soul Surfer and a number of other roles. But then they had Luke Bracey from Point Break and Hacksaw Ridge playing both young and old Jamie, which I thought was odd. I feel like Reese Witherspoon could choose to be insulted by that decision. But at any rate, it was an interesting decision. They kind of explored something that wasn't in the book, which is the road not traveled, where you see at the beginning of the episode that Elena is in Paris with Jamie, and he's like, I don't want to go home. We're enjoying being in Paris together. Let's just not go back. And she's like, but we have plans. And this was where the show is starting to feel really, really like silly to me, because it's like, okay, so if you don't want to stay in Paris, if you want to plan your life out, if you want to actually have a goal and a vision for the future, then that's bad and you're repressed. I mean, some people just like to plan their lives out, and there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean you're repressed because you like to have a plan for where you're going to go. And honestly, it's like pretty obvious that Jamie found a plan at some point, because when Elena reconnects with him in the future, he's got a job. He's a reporter. So what is this even about? Like, what are they trying to say? I don't get it. I get that sometimes in life people choose to do things just because that's the way they planned it, and they don't think about like what they're deciding to do, and they don't think about what they really want, and they don't pursue their passions. Maybe that's what this is getting at, but it's done so like it's creating these false dichotomies that, to me, it's like you have to find that balance between pursuing your passions and between having a responsible life that you can sustain. And I don't think the show seems to recognize that, which is where I've always found this story, the book by Celeste Ng, to be kind of not very constructive, honestly, because I think that it doesn't seem to grapple with the reality of life. Like, I think sometimes authors have this problem because they've been successful pursuing their passion, which is to write, so they think everyone should pursue their passion. But the reality is most people don't get to do that because in real life, most of us have to take jobs. Most of us have to, settle into a decision, which is why Elena's speech kind of resonated with me when she's talking to Jamie later in the episode, and she's like, I don't know, it felt like I never really decided, and then all of a sudden I was stuck, and this was where I was at. And that resonated with me, but they didn't make it very sympathetic from her, because a minute later she's offering to cheat on her husband with Jamie. And, obviously Joshua Jackson has made Bill Richardson a very, very likable character. And this is, making Elena very, very unsympathetic. She's obviously being portrayed as a hypocrite because she's the person who's like, everybody should follow the rules. And anytime someone else doesn't follow her idea of what the rules should be, she's very, very judgmental. But here we see her willing to just cheat on her husband at a moment's notice. And I thought the scene was poorly written because Jamie basically called her a narcissist for thinking that he would want to sleep with her after going on a date with her and then paying for a nightcap. I mean, it doesn't take an idiot to think that's what he was going for. Like, I think just about anyone would have thought that was what he was going for. But then he's like, I thought that you had matured and I expected you to apologize to me. And it's like, really? Like, why would she have to apologize for you? What did she do to you? Maybe they're going to build on that more, but, from what I saw, he has just as much reason to apologize to her as the other way around. And calling someone a narcissist for thinking you want to sleep with them when you bought them a nightcap and then being like, I thought you were here to apologize to me, that seems pretty narcissistic to me. That seems like the pot calling the kettle black. But anyway, that whole plot line, I mean, I've talked about it enough. This episode, basically, probably the duo, if I had to guess, it could have been the oldest Richardson girl, I forget her name, but who finds out this episode that she's pregnant and she ends up having an abortion, and Pearl ends up helping her to get an abortion. And this is where they totally changed something from the books, because in the books, Mia was just endlessly sympathetic to this girl in this situation. But here in the show, she basically tells her off. She's like, my daughter does everything for you, and you just take advantage of her, and you take and take and take, and I'm not giving you anymore, and get out of here and stop being a dramatic little, teenager. And it's like, wow. I mean, I don't think that would be my response in that situation. But and it was totally different than her response in the book. But, they've really gone to great lengths to make Mia not saintly here. And I do get it. Like, the character, the older daughter, is being whiny and annoying. But I do feel like some sympathy and some expression of kindness might have been in order rather than telling her off. And I get that she took advantage of Pearl, and I get all that stuff. And I do feel I can understand that frustration, but there is a constructive way to say that, maybe, and a time to say it, and this probably didn't seem like the time or the way to say it to me. But you let me know what you thought. Tell me if you think that was the appropriate way to tell her off, and the appropriate time to tell her off. And, overall, this episode was another building episode. We got to see a little bit more forward momentum on the story with Baby. I've heard it said both ways on the same show, I think. But anyway, she had a scene where she got to see her daughter with the supervision of the, I think it was like a child services person or something. And then, you have the mother of the child, played by Rosemarie DeWitt, is becoming increasingly unsympathetic, in my opinion. Like, she just seems crazy, and there's no attempt to show her as a loving and caring person. She just seems angry and upset and scared, and it's like, okay, could they try to make her a little bit more sympathetic, please? Because I understand that they want you to think that the child should be with Bibi because Bibi is the mother. But I personally think that doesn't mean that just because she is the adopted mother, not the real mother, that she's an evil person. Don't you want people to adopt, I guess? This is kind of what's frustrating me, is I get the cultural insensitivity of these characters, but they adopted a child, which is a beautiful thing, quite honestly. And I get that, I feel like the line from Instant Family comes to mind, where there's this scene in Instant Family where Mark Wahlberg's character is talking to Octavia Spencer and Tig Notaro's characters, and they're like people at the adoption, they're teaching people how to adopt, and they say, well, we're interested in these Hispanic kids, but won't this be kind of like a white savior thing if we adopt them? And then I forget I think it was Tig Notaro's character, she says, well, okay, we'll put you down as only wanting white babies. And then they're like, we appreciate your cultural sensitivity, but all these kids need adopted, and there's so many kids that need adopted and just not nearly enough people to take them. So to me, when someone goes out and adopts someone, that's a beautiful thing. That's something where they're meeting a need that is out there. Like, kids need parents. They need parents that'll love them and take care of them. And this is obviously a loving and caring home, and they're going to raise Mirabelle, or I forget the Chinese name. Sorry, not trying to forget these names. It's just a lot of characters. But, you know, obviously they want to raise her well, and they're very, very loving people from what I can tell. But, you know, to me, they're just starting to portray them as very unsympathetic when I feel like they're going through a very sympathetic thing. Like, would you trust someone that left their starving child at a fire station to have her back if you had raised her as your daughter for all this time? I don't think you would. I think you would feel very upset and very defensive about that. And I don't think the show seems to want them to be sympathetic. And that bothers me because I think this is a complex discussion. What did you think of episode 5 of Little Fires Everywhere Duo? Let me know in the comments. And if you're interested in seeing more videos like this one, please subscribe to the channel.